everybody for the lecture of Wouete, the artist sitting here. Yeah, I'm wondering what I shall say because I don't know how much he will go into his own biography. Maybe I won't say too much about it, but maybe it's interesting to say what I find interesting about his work. I think there is this kind of romantic idea that art is a mirror of reality. It's mirroring you, and a couple of weeks ago I saw this the Philosophische Scheurkalender, so the philosophical calendar, and the quote of the day that was on it, like if you look to a painting, you don't see a good or a bad painting, but you see yourself, which is interesting. So if it's good or bad, it's not about the painting, but it's about yourself. Also this idea that you see yourself somehow. And I think from this idea, then if you look to the work of Guy, it's not a mirror. And indeed, although you see yourself, but on many more levels, he's criticizing what we see, or trying to open up. How do we look? Trying to frame this. He's playing with our idea of reality, maybe much more than he is mirroring this reality. So if he's mirroring this reality, I think it's much more, how do you say, open up and showing what is really there. So it's a different idea of this reality, and this idea that there is maybe not one reality, there is indeed your reality, and in what way that can be problematic. Yeah? And I'm saying it a bit vague, but hopefully it will become clear. So this work, I think it's amazing, and I also had a pleasure to work with Guy not so long ago, and it's also a great person to work with, so I'm sure the lecture will be amazing. Please give a very warm welcome to you.
Thank you for hosting me. I'm very glad to be with you today. Yeah, that's a bit of pressure from Godard to say that he hoped that, he thinks the lecture going to be great. I don't know. I cannot promise you that. It's always something a bit of a surprise. Of course, I have a few ideas that I would like to kind of share with you. Maybe it's just one idea, I don't know. And this idea goes around the power of image that we should definitely keep on questioning, I would say. Image really in the broader sense, not only in terms of what we capture in a 2-dimension, in terms of photography, or not only in terms of moving image and therefore film and so on, but also in terms of what we perform or what is being performed within our mind when we look at images, and sometimes taking for granted that the image is a still and silent space, which is not looking back at us, and who cannot kind of directly speak back to us, to our gaze, so to say. So I want to try to give it a thought, going from a little video, which is part of a larger project that I did in Lubumbashi in 2019, but which is also very much related to my practice. I don't know where to start, seriously, because I have different things to share. Normally the video is this one. It's titled Le Gouffre. And I wanted to title this moment with you here as image as a gouffre, l'image comme gouffre. I didn't find the right translation for gouffre, but gouffre in French is this kind of dark or deep gaps into which you fall and you have no perspective of light. It's not really a tunnel, but it might look like, but it's something deep and kind of embedded within ground. It's not something very lateral, it's something more kind of really falling down into something. So the idea is really to consider image from that perspective of something that can make you fall into this that gap, that space, or the other way around, something that can make you raise out of that gouffre into which you can fall while looking at things or while applying your gaze onto things. So I will start maybe with my YouTube image or video. And maybe I have to say that you have the title of the. I will just pick this so that you keep hearing my voice. You have the title of the video, Anti-Racist. When you picture Doctor Without Borders, what do you see? This video was made, I think, 3 years ago and published by exactly Doctor Without Borders. But I remember, and I was very happy when I found it online, because I remember having some conversation with people about the boxes of donation that you find at airport. You know, when you're traveling, I don't know how much you travel here using airplane, but even once a year when you travel and you cross airport, you have always those boxes where some NGOs are asking to donate money. When I was first confronted with those boxes back in the days in the airport, it was kind of around earlier 2000 when I started travel from Cameroon as a visual artist in the direction of Europe. So I always saw those boxes, and there was always some images on those boxes. Those images are meant to make you feel empathy and donate. And I've always had this kind of anger toward it, because it always reminds me the image of Sudan or the war, when the war was going on in Sudan or in Somalia, actually. You had a lot of image which came out within the international newspaper showing the kids who are heavily in the bad mood, bad condition, not having enough food. Therefore, the NGOs, they always say that they were doing that in order to have some money. So I started to criticize those images and always having troubles explaining it properly to people that those images somehow contribute to maintain racism and maintain that idea of superiority of oneself toward the others, of the West toward the rest, or towards the non-West, so to say. And finally, this video came out, and I was very happy to see it. So let's have a look, and we keep on going. I hope we have enough sound.
When you picture Doctors Without Borders,
What do you see?
do you picture someone who looks like me?
How can someone who looks like me?
This is a fundraising poster MSF Norway used in 2006. And we've been using pictures like this for a long time, including pictures of me. The problem is, we haven't always
real person so that he looks even more alone and helpless.
For years, we've used pictures like this
To raise awareness,
to raise money.
to recruit staff,
But today, we recognize that these images
propagate a single story and perpetuate racist stereotypes
of so-called white saviors.
and powerless victims.
But Doctors Without Borders has always been
Nigeria without borders.
Kenyans without borders.
Filipinos without borders.
I sing San Francisco.
Mexicanas sin fronteras.
Mga in Los Angeles.
No, happy barbie ng mga fronteras.
Suriyon bila hudud.
We just haven't focused on them as much as we should have.
So, you might not know
That of all our colleagues around the world, the largest number are from South Sudan. You might not know.
and this is because 4 out of 5 of our colleagues,
Are hired locally in the countries where we work.
you might not know
That today, more than half of our international mobile staff,
which are one come from Africa,
the Middle East,
Asia.
and Latin America.
You might not know that Doctors Without Borders has so much diversity,
Because we haven't always shown that to you.
and that is because
Our humanitarian history is unavoidably rooted in the history of colonialism.
and neo-colonialism and its stubborn stereotypes
So the white European expert.
and the distant order in it.
So now we've begun the long journey to change MSF culture.
And way of communicating and advocating.
And because we all have blind spots, we will certainly stumble along the way.
But this isn't just about getting it done, it's about getting it right.
Some changes should be easier than others.
Like showing a more representative picture of who we really are, where we are coming from,
When we tell our story.
our whole story.
Of course, that story still includes people who look like me.
Because that is still true.
However, white people shouldn't be the center of every story.
Because that is not the whole story.
And that's why we want to pass the mic
To our colleagues around the world, much more often.
so that more people from our diverse workforce
And the patients themselves can tell their own story with their own voice, from their own perspectives, and co-own the story. This is important.
So now it's also up to you.
Will you listen to them? We hope you do.
Some say that fewer people will listen when the story isn't told by someone who looks like me.
They say that this kind of poster would raise us much money. And that means we will save fewer lives.
Will you join us in doing that?
We want to believe we will.
Because this is not about us and them.
It is not about heroes and victims
This is about global solidarity
and humanitarian justice.
because we are all
All just human beings with the same worth and dignity and the same right to live in safety and health.
Good. So I don't know if you knew about this video already, but it's also interesting to point out how the video ends. You know, there is that idea that if the image to promote the work of Doctor Without Borders is the image of a black person or black doctor, it won't produce enough empathy to people in order to donate. So I haven't tried to check how far they are since they have decided to change their way of communicating about themselves. So that was the first thing I wanted to show you. I don't know whether it is the first. And now, we are in 2019. I'm invited at the Lubumbashi Biennale, and the idea is that I make a work that somehow will be part of the Biennale, and I had only like 4 weeks to do that. And it was very important for me somehow not to make a work from a distance, you know, not to go from Belgium and know directly what I was going to propose in Lubumbashi, but to arrive there and see with people what is possible to do or what is to be done. Go actually somehow from the local reality, so to say, although it might sound cliche. So I arrived in Lubumbashi, and one of the things I was directly confronted with is the fact that the presence of the colonial past is very, very much visible within the public space. And somehow I wanted to go from there to propose something to the Biennale. But that was not so easy. But luckily, on my process, I met someone called Professor Yabili, we call it like that, or Maître Yabili, who is a lawyer, who used to, he's now retired, but who is very interesting person, not interesting in the sense of being good or bad, but because the way he looks at I find him interesting because the way he looked at the colonial history of his country is very problematic from my point of view. But still, it gives something, it forces you who is understanding or who is listening to him to rethink your relation to the history of colonialism at the local level in Congo, but also at the large level, at the broader level, let's say at the international level, so to say. I arrived in Congo then, in Lubumbashi in 2019. The question of decolonization of public space is already very present in the Belgium context, and is something I'm very much interested in. And I listened to that man, and I was like, yeah, I think we also have some work to do at home if we still have some people with all their intelligence who thinks like this. It means that we still have really a long way to go. Then with this man, we come together into a show in Lubumbashi. There was an exhibition that was put on by Sandrine Collard, who is curator. She's even based here in Belgium. An exhibition on archive picture of the Congo, the colonial Congo, with some labels, some, how do you say it? Some little text actually explaining images. And with this man, Mr. Yabili, we visited that exhibition, and he was challenging what was written under one of the image in relation to the colonial history. So I went from there. I asked him if we could have a conversation about his perspective on this image. He said yes. Then we make an appointment, and I did what you're gonna see now. I always present this as a key element somehow to open conversation with the audience, and never like something which is closed in itself. So it's not very long. I think it's like 7 minutes. I propose we take a look, and then the conversation will be open. So you can speak at the same time as I do. So let's go.
Nous sommes le seul pays d'Afrique où il y a eu une indépendance sans un coup de feu qui ait été tiré, sans un affrontement entre des troupes belges coloniales qui défendaient la colonisation et des libérateurs africains. Je veux qu'on donne la réalité historique du Congo, qui n'a pas le même passé idéologique de libération dans le sens, on peut dire, que les autres pays africains.
Comment fait-on pour renouveler dans la classe dirigeante et changer la mentalité du leadership sur le continent pour vraiment arriver à une certaine
décolonisation, c'est-à-dire, j'entends par décolonisation quitter cet imaginaire comme ça qui consiste à croire que le meilleur est ailleurs, en fait.
Je ne suis pas d'accord avec l'approche anticolonialiste. Nous avons des problèmes qui sont autres. Nous avons des priorités qui sont autres et sur lesquelles nous devons absolument nous concentrer pour débloquer cette société.
Dans l'exposition photo, on voit deux noirs en train de transporter des sacs de golf. Et donc, sous l'image, il y a un commentaire qui explique que donc je voudrais qu'on parle de cette image-là, vous m'avez écrit dans vos lectures de cette image-là, et que de là, en fait, vous expliquez un peu plus longuement comment est-ce que vous pensez que l'on puisse aujourd'hui articuler un discours post-colonial. À quoi est-ce que cela peut consister et comment est-ce que cela peut avoir un impact sur les réalités africaines?
On commence par l'image, hein? C'est-à-dire qu'en fait, l'image, c'est un choix. Il y a beaucoup d'images, alors si on veut illustrer les liens de suggestion entre des employeurs européens et les Congolais qui les assistaient, ou soit pour transporter des sacs, etc., il y a énormément d'images qu'on peut avoir. La première chose qu'on doit savoir est celle-ci. Moi, personnellement, je suis contre ce discours d'Africains serviteurs. Parce que c'est un discours qui est raciste, mais un racisme par les Africains eux-mêmes qui se minimisent. C'est ainsi que, par exemple, on parle des pionniers de la colonisation, et ce sont les Européens qu'on transportait dans les pirogues, ce sont les Européens qui ont construit des ponts, les Européens qui ont fait des routes, qui ont construit des bâtiments. Mais je vous dis, s'il vous plaît, il n'y a aucun pont qui ne peut être construit sans la participation des Africains. Il n'y a aucune route, il n'y a aucun bâtiment. Alors, s'il vous plaît, ces petites fourmis qui ont participé à l'œuvre coloniale, on ne peut pas les minimiser, dire que ça n'existait pas. Non, non, non. Ils ont participé. Alors, les Africains doivent être fiers de cette participation au lieu de se minimiser en disant non, voilà, nous, on fouettait, nous étions là pour transporter des briques, tandis que l'ingénieur blanc était sous un parasol, etc. Non, non, non. Moi, je dis que ça, je suis tout à fait contre ce racisme à rebours, comme quoi les Africains n'avaient aucun rôle. Mais au contraire, le rôle il est réel. Et alors, lorsqu'on regarde l'image elle-même, qu'est-ce qu'on voit sur cette image? On voit qu'il y a un Africain qui tient une tige, mais la tige en fait désigne un trou, le trou dans lequel on doit faire introduire la balle. Et on voit une dame dans la ligne du trou et avec son club de golf qui doit être orienté. Et c'est ainsi qu'on joue au golf, c'est-à-dire que l'Africain, on dit Africain qui tient la tige, il fait partie de notre équipe et il va vous guider pour vous dire écoutez, s'il vous plaît, prenez telle position pour que la balle vienne droit pour entrer dans le trou. Alors, cette image-là, c'est une image de collaboration entre blanc et noir dans un sport. Donc ce n'est pas une image de suggestion, de suggestion. On va dire oui, dans cette relation, l'Africain se sentait inférieur. Mais je ne sais pas moi. Je ne sais pas comment il pouvait se sentir inférieur lorsque on veut marquer un but et que c'est lui qui dit à l'autre, non écoutez, non, orientez non pas comme ça, un peu plus ouvert, un peu cela. Bon, c'est difficile mais la réalité elle est différente. Du temps colonial, il y avait des liens de suggestion, avec tout ce que ça comporte comme dépersonnalisation et tout. Mais seulement qu'on cherche les images appropriées, mais pas celles-là. Je m'appelle KASKlezing, je suis né à Lubumbashi, je suis congolais, je n'ai pas pris une autre nationalité. J'étais éligible pour la nationalité belge, mais je n'ai jamais demandé, donc je suis ici, je suis congolais, marié congolaise, mes enfants sont toujours porteurs de passeport congolais, même s'ils ont beaucoup de postes à l'étranger. Et alors ici, donc, je suis juriste et je suis de la première décennie des universitaires formés au Congo. Je suis diplômé en 69, c'est à 650 ans que j'ai terminé l'université. Je suis juriste, donc j'ai fait une carrière à l'université, au barreau, et en même temps, je suis industriel, j'ai créé une industrie de la chaussure qui est fermée pour le moment. Et depuis 10 ans, j'ai été sollicité pour des conférences, des séminaires, et cela m'a amené à faire des recherches bien ciblées sur, par exemple, la Cour constitutionnelle, sur, par exemple, la fiscalité, et cela m'a amené à faire des publications.
Yeah. So that's it. I will just come back to the image itself. Yeah. Yeah, we also have, the text under the image was very clear in what this image was. And that's why I started by pointing out the fact that the image can really be something, image should be something that we don't have to take for granted. We cannot take any image for granted, because what this lawyer with his training is seeing in this image is far from what we might consider as a giving perspective of the image that was made in the specific context. So I was both, that's why I find him very intelligent as a person, actually, because I was both surprised and at the same time not surprised in the kind of shocking way. It was really a surprise to see that his mind was able to shift the gaze on the image and build that lecture that he made of a team. You know, he saw within this image a teamwork, which is actually what a support is. But he will speak about it without putting in perspective the context into which the image was made, which is a context in which actually you couldn't have a Congolese person playing in a white team who is having a good time playing golf, actually. But he managed somehow to assume that there is a teamwork here in this image, with the two guys holding directing the lady who's going to make the point, actually. So one of my main questions here was like, how do you do once the image, specifically archive images, jumped into contemporary space? And here I'm trying somehow to not only question the space of, the agency of images, but also the question, the archive images that most of us as an artist, we're playing with it today. When an archive image jumps within the public spaces, specifically contemporary spaces, there is always a tendency or a risk somehow to produce a new narrative on the image, which will distance the new viewer from the historical reality of that image. And there is nothing you can do against that. There is nothing you can do against that. We should also consider from let's say, a pedagogical perspective that people who will do this type of reading of colonial or propaganda images, they need that narrative in order to accept or in order to understand or to be in peace, let's say, with what happened within history. And you cannot blame that at the same time. You cannot blame people trying to justify what had happened within history by refusing a certain perspective or certain narrative that the image tried to impose to us. And in this case, we're facing an image that I will say is the less violent image of the colonial history, I would say. So going from this image, I was planning as well, which I finally changed my mind. I was planning to show a few images which are online nowadays with what is happening specifically in Sudan or in Gaza, which are very crazy, violent images, and addressing from there what we're hearing as a discourse on those images that we can see, all of us, from online, coming from those spaces, Sudan, Somalia, or Gaza now. How people, including specifically politicians, are justifying and trying to explain what is the context which justified the production of this type of image or the existence of this type of images. So I wanted to point out just a little bit before moving on. And maybe if you have a question now, I'll be open to discuss it a little bit, because I'll move on the other phase of my stay in Lubumbashi and what I did there, which is also dealing with this question of image, but which will no longer be directly linked to the colonial images, actually.
Maybe I have a question.
Yes.
Like, you don't see the lawyer.
Yeah.
You don't see the color of the lawyer, for example. Which is also a bit like you're wondering, you're expecting maybe it's a white lawyer, but you're not sure. You're thinking maybe it's a black lawyer.
That's why I let him introduce himself at the end of the video with all the details that he gave, actually, so that you could locate him. At the same time, it was a choice not to really put his face on his testimony or the conversation we were having, because that type of discourse is a discourse that you can displace, you can relocate in many different places in relation to the images, specifically violent images, no matter whether he's black or white, and specifically in this case, he is a Congolese, as he said. He made all his studies in Congo. He was born and grew up there, so he's a black lawyer, so to say, who have certain knowledge. So we're not speaking here about someone, let's say, who doesn't have any modern education, and who might be speculating on an image without having an intellectual ability to put an image in perspective. So we're speaking about someone who really knows what is an image, what image can do, and he's applying his lecture to this image in the direction that he did in the video. So this is somehow why I choose not to put his face, actually, but just give a possibility to identify who is speaking at the end of the video. Is all okay so far? Good. So now we will move on something. So one of the things I also did while I was in Lubumbashi is that I met a lady on the street. The corner of the road, with her business. I don't know if I can open two images at the same time, but I will try. Let me just try this. Yeah, oof. That one is not really good.
You can if you double click.
Yeah?
Double click instead of the space bar.
Ah, you mean, okay.
Not the space bar.
Yeah.
This is the preview.
Okay. I will do this. Yes. Then I'll go in the other file. Yeah. Yes. So when I arrived in Lubumbashi, I met a lady. There was a lady just in front of the building where we had the headquarters of the Biennale. She was selling her stuff on this table, actually. This little table that you have here. And it's something which is very common in many places in Africa, specifically in the southern part of Sahara. It's kind of common. You have a lot of people doing their little business like this around the street. And I always know that this type of image is both a very cliche image, giving the fact that many narratives have been applied on those images as being image of poverty. And being someone who grew up there, I never experienced those images as image of poverty. For me, it has always been the image of resilience, the way that people make their life every day, so to say. And we grew up seeing many of our elders doing this type of job, changing what they're going to sell today according to the season. If it's the fruit season, they will sell some fruit. If it's the cassava period, there will be a lot of cassava on the street where people selling those, doing the business around cassava, for example. And when I started looking to the news and traveling in Europe, I realized that actually there was an image of poverty. There was an image of what the other is, very much linked to this type of practices. So, which is not to say that there might not be a condition of poverty linked to the people who do this type of job. But I think that looking at this type of images as image of poverty is completely something upside down, because many people who do these jobs on the continent are people who take care of a full family while doing this. They send the kids to school, they have the health care coming out of it, they do their saving, they build their house, etc., etc. Then let's go back on this. So I wanted to give it a little touch in the context of the Lubumbashi Biennale, where I had a bit of budget to produce my work. So I tried to bring two aspects of image and power, and specifically the power of money or the power of capitalism. I tried to bridge those two elements together within my relation to this lady. So I visited her for 3 days. So I came, I sat there with her. We had a little chat. Some of the kids were around her. She said they didn't have school. That's what she told me at that moment. So they could come every day with her to do the business. And what happened after the 3 times I came by is that I asked her how much it will cost to buy the entire table. She said something like a 50, not 50, like $150, something like that. In Congo, people count a lot in dollar. So I asked, because that's really how the table was made. I just add on the table the conversion of prices, from 5,000 francs, 5,000 francs is an equivalent of $3. So I just did those little changes. So she said $150. I asked her what will she do if she could buy all the things that she had, including the table. She said she didn't know, but that before she started selling on this table, she was having some farming business, and then at some point she didn't have access to the land anymore. So she decided to start this business. So maybe that was her idea. She could go back to rent a little land to start farming again, or do something else. It's a work in progress because I have the video of our transaction actually. I offer her $200 to buy the entire table. She accepted. She was very happy with it. I asked her to keep everything. She agreed. And then I took the table. The day after, what happened is that I came out of the headquarters of the Biennale, and there was a hole within the space where she used to be every morning. And the news went around very fast, and I had a lot of complaint and tension because some of the people, including from the Biennale, they disagree with what I did. And specifically the neighbors of the ladies, because she wasn't the only lady having this business, so there was also other people around. They were very angry against me, and I never really managed to understand what was their point. Was that because I didn't buy their business, or was that because they didn't have any interaction with the lady anymore because she was not coming? So anyway, I moved on somehow. I tried to have a conversation with people from the Biennale about the work. And one of my main points was, first of all, to explain that what happened, and that most of the time we don't realize, with the violence of capitalism and the type of picture that capitalism can produce, is that really what happened with my action in the interaction I had with this lady, is the idea to make something or someplace disappear on the map. It's like kind of being in this principle of It's not really the idea of being rich or not being rich. It's really a political action to decide that today, I mean, one of the main pictures that I can take is the multinational. You know, the multinational is not, most of the time you will take a company, I don't know which one I can name like this. Just consider one big company that you know in your mind around the world, whether banking or from the industrial sector, is that if the company is having kind of challenge with other people who are dealing in the same sector, if you're in the economic business sector like banking sector, what will happen is that one bank will decide to buy the other one and close it down. So you buy it, you close it down, and then you become like the main figure on the market who provide, the main provider, and therefore you can make more money, or you can just redirect the way that people experience diversity, and I'm speaking here about diversity of business. You can really redirect the way they look at it. But that was just one figure of my action, because the other figure of my action was also to say that this lady, she's in the context, or she was in the context where she probably, or she might have said to herself once that if I had this amount of money at once, I would do something out of it. And here we come to something a bit autobiographical here. I grew up in the family of six kids, and my father passed away I was still young, 13 or 14, and we had only my mother who had to raise us up while running a little business like this one. Exactly. And I mean, today I have few answers how she did manage to take care of a family of six kids without a husband and without having a wage labor, without being part of a wage labor system. I have few answers today, but back in the days, my question was always to understand how can you have a table like this selling things where you're going to make less than 10 euro a day and being able to take care of a family of six. That was really one of my struggle when I started look at my family, at my mother as a grown-up person, and putting her struggle or her resilience, to put it clearly. And what also made it complicated for me was the fact that we never felt hungry. We never slept without food. We always had enough to eat at home. We always went to school until we had to go to the university. Then it gets a bit complicated. Then we start realize that exactly the family didn't have enough money, etc. But until that moment, we always, we were very happy, as most of the kids, most of our friends, where family was always having this type of business as my mother did back in the days. So there is that relation, that personal relation with this fact of me deciding to making the decision to buy the entire table of the lady, and to end, to round my interaction with the lady, is that the Biennale opened like 5 days. After 5 days, the lady, she showed up again, actually, with a new table where she had renewed everything. Everything was really completely renewed, because this, for example, to keep things fresh, is a broken one, actually. Nothing could be really fresh into it. So she brought up new table. I I made a picture. I mean, when I'm done with the project, those things gonna be visible. But anyway, so she decided to reproduce the same business. So she came back where she was. Now, on the question of image, back again on the question of image, within the context of the Biennale and exhibition, so to say, this is how the work was shown with video. And most of the people who came to visit the show in Lubumbashi, they didn't understand, or they find it really bizarre to have this within the space of exhibition as an artwork. And they wanted to buy, I mean, like they wanted to buy the water, they wanted to buy some stuff on the table. And of course, it wasn't for sale. And people were really disturbed by the idea that art could appropriate itself reality, let's say social life, what is happening in daily life, and capture it within space of exhibition and show it as an aesthetic element, which is a question that I'm still dealing with at the moment. So that's kind of what I wanted to say on this project, which is an ongoing work. I don't know if you have any question now, before I maybe... No question, everything is fine? You're following? Or does it make sense for you? Let's say so. Yes?
Did you buy the table for $200 from the woman and then you presented it as an artwork?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now is it in a big private collection?
That's exactly the point. No, not at all, because that was the other, let's say, not a principle. It was a kind of contract that I made with myself, that the work was not to be sold, and that at the end of the day, the thing will just be given to the kids around, because during the Biennale there are a lot of kids following what is happening, and that's exactly what we did. The back of Chaco here was donated. The Biennale took it, and one of the ladies who works for the Biennale could have it actually. And the rest of the table, I don't know what the Biennale did with it, but I just tell them not to. I mean, it was not made to enter a collection, so to say. So. My point with going from this image of the colonial archive and coming to this image of the market of the capitalistic world, where there is a principle of erasing, of making a gap within a space, of capturing a fragment of a map and kind of just cut it out there, like kind of extraction, is here to point out the fact that there is no real, how can I say it, not good to bad, I won't put it in terms of good to bad, but there is no one lecture that you can make on an image. We cannot produce image which will give a single point of view of the world. We are permanently confronted with the fact that by standing in front of an image, the image permanently shifts from what the author or the artist have had as an intention at the beginning of the production of the image, till the moment where the viewer, with his or her own personal experience, will look at the image and project something else. we are not able to produce an image which had a single lecture, which will give a single perspective. That's really one of the points I wanted to make, because on the question of decoloniality nowadays, there is I won't say a common agreement, but there is something going on the fact that whether you're for or whether you're against the idea of removing the idea of decolonizing our world, decolonizing our society, whether you're for or whether you're against, there's going to always be that tension where everything that we propose can definitely be read or be written in one way or the other, according to the idea that we have, according to the experience that is ours, actually. So that's really one of the things I wanted to point out here with you. I don't know for how long I've been speaking. Not long enough. That's good, because I have a lot to say. So I'm just trying to make sure that someone is keeping the track. Yeah? Good. Do this. I will just bring in the other images. Yeah, here we are. Sorry. Yeah, I want to go around on the and maybe and with this one. I just want to show you one other video that came out from my stay in Lubumbashi, and which is directly in relation with Mr. Yabili. And now you're gonna see who was the person speaking, but also have the other perspective of that dialogue that started in that video. The video is titled, it's a video installation, and it's titled Le Fou Post-Colonial Insane, which is the title that I gave to the entire project. Here. It's 22 minutes, but we're gonna stop a bit before the end, and I will say a few words about it.
Je voudrais vous dire ceci. C'est que le rapport entre un serviteur et son maître, c'est pas des rapports coloniaux, c'est des rapports sociaux. Ça n'a rien à voir avec la colonisation. Parce que moi je suis le serviteur, donc je ne suis pas le colonisateur. Mais seulement, qu'est-ce qui s'est passé dans la colonisation? Là, il y a le cas de ce monsieur qui est là, et monsieur Jacques Massaoud qui a eu longtemps. Lui, monsieur Jacques Massaoud, son père était un domestique. Il est né à la famille, dans le petit logette de la maison. Quand il a eu 5 ans, c'était à Kikuchi, son patron, le patron de son père est venu, il a dit, petit, ne joue plus par terre. Je te prends, je te mets dans le bus avec les étudiants qui vont étudier à Lubumbashi. Et c'est le patron qui a pris le petit enfant de domestique, qui le mettait tous les matins dans le bus, où il y avait des étudiants pour aller étudier à Lubumbashi. Et ce petit enfant de domestique, est devenu ministre, ambassadeur de autre chose. C'est ça la réalité. C'est ça la réalité. Comme c'est un peu la réalité de l'île. Ce processus, c'est comme si vous disiez que un maître, quelqu'un qui nourrit son chien, en fait, ne le fait pas adopter pour le chien. Non, il a besoin de son chien. Le chien n'a pas le même statut. Excusez-moi. Ce n'est pas de ça que je parle. Moi, je parle d'une lecture unilatérale de l'histoire. Je dis non, je ne suis pas d'accord. Non. Lisez l'histoire, mais vous n'avez pas le droit de déclarer que les serviteurs, c'était non. Je dis non. Lisez l'histoire. Où on fait l'histoire coloniale, et c'est seulement que l'histoire coloniale est avant tout l'histoire d'intérêt économique, et on a lié ça d'idéologie et d'institutions politiques, ça c'est l'histoire coloniale. Maintenant, lorsqu'on examine des cas sociaux, ce sont des cas sociaux, c'est comme ça. Ce sont des cas de sociaux, quelqu'un qui a l'argent, qui a besoin de quelqu'un d'autre, mais ce sont des cas sociaux. Mais on ne peut pas donner à ces cas sociaux le même label. Parce que même si on donne le même label, à ce moment-là, on fait tout le crypto convenablement le fait colonial. Il faut que le fait colonial reste un fait économique, politique, idéologique, et les autres manifestations sont les manifestations des retombées. C'est comme ça. Il y a ceci, les gens qui viennent ici, ils peuvent toujours la question, mais pourquoi, qu'est-ce que nous allons découvrir si on vient dans votre musée? Qu'est-ce que vous avez dans votre musée que vous pouvez nous montrer? Alors, maintenant, très rapidement, on va faire une chose très importante, ça va faire avec les droits sans chasser à tout parce que vous ne oui, non, parce que vous n'êtes pas là, c'est que la ville, c'est un terrain vierge, et il y a une loi de 1898 qui disait que si vous créez une ville, le périmètre est réglementé. Il faut que les maisons soient alignées, reculées de 6 mètres, et en même temps, il faut, les gens ne peuvent s'installer là-bas que s'ils achètent la terre et s'ils construisent un truc dans les 6 mois. Oui. Oui. Donc, je pense que, en parlant du droit de terre, est-ce qu'il était du droit de fixer le droit de terre non, écoutez, la question n'est pas là. Parce que, excusez-moi. Non, écoutez, la question n'est pas là. Parce que, aussi bien le produit ici que les Anglais, excusez-moi, que les Anglais en Zambie, ils n'ont pas géré la terre. Ils ont donné ça à des compagnies, excusez-moi. Moi, je dis le produit a fait la loi. Il a fait la loi. Le seul gars qui voulait la terre, ce n'était pas le produit. C'était une compagnie qui voulait la loi sur une terre qui n'appartenait pas. Parce que les deux consommateurs. Non, mais pas d'accord, excuse-moi. Non, s'il te plaît, excuse-moi. Non, excuse-moi, je te réponds très brièvement.
So what is happening here, and then I will move to the second video, and then we almost heading to the end, is that Mr. Yabele had created a little museum in the house of his childhood when he was a child. It's a family house. He have turned it into a museum. We're still within the question of image. I hope I'm not losing you completely. We're still on that question of image. And within that little museum that he had created, he have installed different images, exactly as we can see on the wall, and he give a little tour on the history of Lubumbashi, the city of Lubumbashi. And he's speaking about the colonial history of Lubumbashi. He's speaking from the colonial history of Lubumbashi to the contemporary Lubumbashi. And during the whole trajectory, I cannot help myself than stopping him every time, because what he's saying, for me, just doesn't make sense. For example, one of the fragments that you just hear here speaking about how a law was issued by Leopold II on land in Lubumbashi, and then we fighting on the fact that, but You cannot issue a law on the land that is not yours. There is a problem there, and he's trying to say that everything is fine. And then he will go on until on different aspects using images to tell the history of colonization, and at the same time trying to justify the practice within the colonial period of the Congo, because he sees it as a possibility of really realizing the civilized mission, the mission of, bringing the so-called people who live in the bush in certain type of modernity, and therefore what is considered to be a normal way of living. If you have a land, you don't construct your house with the bricks in 6 months, then you lost the land. You have to move away. So just to go quick, and then I'll move on the second video because it's a video installation and it's difficult to watch everything.
Toute ma vie, j'entends parler de ça, le paradoxe en Congo. Le pays le plus riche du monde avec la population la plus pauvre du monde. Last night I had a stranger street I had not seen before. I dreamed the Lord had already to put an end to war. To put an end to war. And the people in the streets below are dancing hand in hand. Moi j'ai beaucoup appris, parce que moi en fait je suis un scientifique, métallurgiste, ingénieur civil métallurgiste, ingénieur en sciences économiques, en gestion, etc. Mais je suis presque devenu historien, tellement j'étais passionné par tous ces profs, au point que je devenais un activiste. Il m'appelait tellement sous l'oppression de l'Afrique, sur tous les héros africains, les martyrs de liberté dans tous les pays, et que tous ceux qui luttaient dans les néocolonies françaises contre les francs CFA, contre la taxe sur le fait de la colonisation, la législation au Rwanda. Et c'est tous les outils de la France pour mieux piller l'Afrique. Alors j'apprenais que tous les profs du NIF qui osaient riposter à ça, ou des ministres, tout ça, ils passaient tous de l'autre côté. Vous voyez, de l'autre côté de la rive, comme on dit, ils perdaient tous leur vie, et il y en a beaucoup, tous ceux qui osaient s'opposer. Alors j'ai commencé à étudier, à creuser plus profondément, et là c'est comme ça que j'ai appris en fait que la grandeur de l'Afrique et la grandeur de la race noire. J'ai acquis une énorme admiration pour tous ces gens. Et alors j'ai compris qu'en fait, nous autres, on était éduqués avec une éducation judéo-chrétienne. On pensait qu'il n'y avait rien ici avant, mais en fait, il y a eu donc cette chaîne Cartadio qui a démontré qu'en Afrique, pendant des millénaires, même avant Ève, avant Adam, il y a eu des très grandes civilisations des Noirs. Donc le nord du Soudan, c'était la Nubie, et c'était eux qui sont devenus les pharaons noirs. C'était une époque où les Noirs étaient les maîtres du monde. Puis en ceux qui vont maintenant réviser où tous les touristes font, mais avec le sphinx et tout ça, à l'époque, l'Afrique s'appelait l'Afrique. Et avec les grandes filles, ça c'est Dochet Cartadiop, symbolisé. Et on avait donc. C'était vraiment honteux, parce que c'était un véritable héros. Un peu avant les mots de M. Martin Luther King. Alors il n'y a pas plus de monde qui est allé faire un discours déjà à Accra en 1958. Nous sommes unis avec l'Afrique nationale, nous sommes unis avec vous, nous battons tous pour la libération de la Rhodésie, de l'Angola, de l'Algérie, tous unis. Hein. C'était un homme exceptionnel, hein. Mobutu, hein. Il avait exactement le même âge que le roi Baudouin. Hein. C'était des grands amis jusqu'à l'histoire politique du Maroc. C'est le massacre du campus du Lubumbashi. Et quand j'étais à l'université, comme ça m'a fait toucher personnellement. Hein. C'est à cause de ça que j'avais dû quitter le Congo. Hein. Moi, je me suis battu pour qu'on crée un lieu de mémoire sur le campus de faire des concours d'artistes. On s'était décidé.
So, to give you another context again, here is Mr. Roya Simba. That's a name that he gives himself. He have translated his name into Swahili. Congo is a Belgium settler in the Congo since a very long time, and he have decided that now his life he have become a Pan-Africanist actually, because he have read a lot about it, and his engagement is really something to be questioned, because at the end of the day, he also set a kind of little museum in his courtyard in Lubumbashi, where he also gives tour to people who comes to visit Lubumbashi. And here we're doing a tour of different panels using images again to tell another version of the history of the Congo, but at large, including Black Africa in general, where he's defending the idea of Africa as the black continent, as the great continent, as the continent of wonderful people who never do anything wrong, including Mobutu, as you can see in this panel where he's explaining here. So you keep in mind those two figures, and then I will just move on to the third video.
Quelle est la perception que nous avons et que nous dictons à nos enfants autour de la question de folie? Ne serons-nous pas dans certaines circonstances en train de nous réjouir de nos folies? Serons-nous conscients des folies qui sont les nôtres lorsque nous prenons des décisions dans lesquelles nos populations ne s'identifient pas? Quel serait alors l'impact de cette dissociation nourrie et entretenue par exemple par certaines politiques dans la destinée d'un peuple qui ne s'y retrouve pas? Dans nos folies à nos peuples, on arrive à contaminer nos dirigeants en les poussant à se croire comparables à Dieu dans leur folie de grandeur. À cela, qui de mieux pour en parler si ce n'est un Congolais qui a vécu la dictature de Mobutu? C'est notre folie à nous, peuple, qui, comme dans un processus de traumatisme doux, dans lequel on se retrouverait en chatouillant son oreille avec un coton-tige, que nous avons poussé nos dirigeants à imaginer un Mobutu descendant des nuages à la télévision nationale avant chaque journal télévisé. Inutile d'imaginer les effets que pareille idée pourrait produire dans les imaginaires des enfants que nous étions. Comment le président, dans une sorte de folie de grandeur, est arrivé avec sa politique de recours à l'authenticité à faire pondre à son envie une sorte de délire, de renoncer à des noms à consonance occidentale qu'une anecdote raconte par exemple que Valentin Yves Mudimbe, l'un des grands penseurs de l'époque, s'inspirera des initiales de ses étudiants, Vumbi et Yoka, pour garder les initiales
VY de sa signature. Cette dissociation de nos manières de penser, le dramaturge camerounais Kwame Tawa la constate aussi.
So, maybe now I can give a bit more context since we're heading to the end. What I did, this video installation actually from that moment of residency in Congo, when then on this process of looking into colonial images, images of propaganda, or questioning that idea, not really colonial images, but questioning that idea of image as something that have a lot of strange potential, let me put it that way, really strange potential in terms of the gaze that it produced, but also in terms of gap that it can create between the viewer, let's say the viewer of every day, so people who doesn't have tools to read images, and people mostly like us who have certain distance with images. So I went from there, at least within this context of this talk, to arrive on the images that I myself am trying to propose, not really as a counter-narrative, but as a possible image that could be considered as decolonial images. What could that decolonial images be? That's how we arrive on what you're seeing now, where I invite two psychanalysts within public space to perform and to speak to a larger public without any appointment about what is it, what madness means in the context of a post-colonial Africa, or specifically in the post-colonial Congo, DRC. Because the entire project is titled Le Fou Post-Colonial Insane. The post-colonial insane is in French and English. And the idea here with the project, with the installation, the video installation, is to address, or was to address, that question of madness, not only at the psychiatric level, but really going from the psychiatric level to span it up to the political, economical, social environment, and see somehow how it operates. Because after listening to the two first people that you had, the lawyer and this man who used to work in the mining companies and who today is this white man, Mr. Leonard Roya Simba, as he called himself, going from those two people and understanding their narrative on a factual history that we know about it from readings, etc., that some of them, because they were born in the colonial period, they grew up within that context, they had a chance to have an education, and let's say the result of having a direct relation to that history didn't help them construct a reading on that heritage, on that memory, that somehow can be transferred to our generation without any questionment. So I go from there to address that question of madness. There is something really which is linked to what Fanon considers as alienation. No matter whether you kind of pro-African and you adopt the point of view of the white guy who is defending the continent, or no matter whether you more, let's say, conservative or right-wing and you're trying somehow to justify colonization, there are certain, not limit, but I want to put it in terms of ethic, that make that if you kind of conscious of yourself and have certain distance with the history, you cannot just adopt it as they're doing from such a extreme perspective. You know, not the things are not fully white or fully black. Actually, you cannot put this history in such a perspective. So I went from there to propose to those two psychoanalysts to perform for me and to address that notion of madness within public space, with the hope, from my position as an artist, to produce another image, to produce an image which for me could correspond to what I imagine as being a prospective vision of a decolonial society. So that's kind of what it gave. And yeah, come on. And then we're done. There are just only two other videos that this, and then you will have a full picture of the project. And then I'm done. Oh, internet, be with us. So anyway, I will just show you the images of the last video, which is part of that installation. Actually, the last video, also the first video of the series of the installation, is two dancers with whom I did work during 3 weeks there, and we came up with a choreography on dancing the madness, or bringing the madness into life through dance, with the idea of somehow having this performative moment as a moment where the madness possess the body, but at the same time the body express and try to clean up itself out of, and push out that madness. That was somehow what we tried to do with the choreography that we put on, actually, in building this installation. So it was without any sound. Of course, we use the sound during the preparation and all the rehearsal. But when the performance took place within the public space, it was without any sound, actually. So yeah, that's all I had for you tonight. Thank you.